Hello everybody and welcome back. Do not let this beautiful weather fool you, because we all know that in place like this in Manitoba, it can change from this to an absolute blizzard in less than a month. And that means that winter is around the corner, which comes to my two favorite things, ice fishing and ice camping. Now, with that being said, if you've seen my channel before, you've seen me use pretty much every single kind of diesel heater, different companies, different styles, different shapes. I've actually built my own. I've done ones in coolers. I've done a dual diesel heater setup. And after all these years, after all these different companies and different types of diesel heaters, I'm actually impressed, and I'm super excited to be able to show you that I got my hands on one of Hcalory's newest diesel heaters, the Toolbox 2. I'm gonna show you a whole bunch of things that they've changed and why this is not only just gonna set this diesel heater apart from others, it may actually be a little bit of a game changer for the diesel heater community. So out with the old, in with the new. Let's get into it, let's get into the details, and let me show you the brand new Hcalory Toolbox 2 diesel heater. Now, of course, before we get into all the fun stuff, I'm gonna give you a little bit of overlook on what is all included with the box in your purchase. Just like every other diesel heater, you can get your good old bag of goodies. It can be all your clamps and brackets and whatnot. Realistically, it's kind of nice if you look. There's really not a lot of stuff you get, and that's because with the all-in-one, you don't really need much. Everything's all built in. So yeah, bag of goodies. As for power source, you get your 12-volt wire. This is really nice. This is pretty long. I think this is about 6 feet. So that is really nice. Now, one of the big things that I absolutely love that Hcalory has done is they've listened to the diesel heater community and actually included an AC/DC power adapter. This is perfect, especially if you're gonna be doing some truck camping, or if you wanna put this in your garage, or if you have a power source and you don't wanna run it off a battery. This is absolutely great that they include this, because so many times, not so many, almost every single time I've ever bought a diesel heater, I've had to buy a separate AC/DC power supply. So yes, thank you Hcalory for including this. That is awesome. Now you get this little wire here as well. Now, a lot of people don't know what this one's for. This is actually an extension for your controller. So you can take your controller off, open up the box, attach this extension. So if you're doing something like truck camping, or if you have it in your garage and you have this outside, you can actually have your control module inside your tent, inside your garage, inside your truck, whatever you need to. So that's a really nice option. I probably won't use this because, first off, it does come with a remote, but one of the biggest things with the Hcalory Toolbox 2 setup is it also is Bluetooth capable, which means that on your Hcalory Bluetooth app, you can go through and control everything you need. So realistically, the extension, the remote, I probably won't be using much, because 99% I'm on the app. Nothing's better than the middle of the night. You wanna turn up the temperature, check your heat settings, check your fuel, check whatever you need to. You can go on the app and control everything you need while this is outside. So of course, they also have the hose for the cold air combustion. They have a little bracket that's gonna go on here. I do wanna do some modifications to this. I think there's something that could be changed yet. We'll get into that in a little bit. So that one. And then last but not least, they have their heat output pipe. Now, this does have its own register. It's really cool because you can clip this off. It takes a little bit of pressure. It does have the holes for the screw, so you can put this into a wall, a junction, wherever you need to, and then you can put the cover over top. Makes for a super clean install. Now you don't even see that. Now, one big thing you're gonna notice is, this is the pipe from the old one. This is the pipe from the new one. Now, you're probably wondering why the new one is a little bit bigger, and that's what we're gonna get into next. We're gonna open this up and show you and give you some of the stats on the Toolbox 2, and that's what's gonna be the game changer from this to the old setup. Now, before we get this opened up, let's check out some of the outside components. Of course, you have your filler top. This is pretty standard in a lot of diesel heaters. One of the things that they've changed and implemented for this here is a little filter screen. Now, this is positive. It's really nice to see that they have it, but it's also a little bit of a negative, and I'll explain that in a sec. That is, I found out that if you're using a gas pump hose and you're trying to fill it, this mesh is pretty tight and it can spill over. So, not a big fan of filling the tank with this in. If you're using a jerry can, it's not too bad, but if you do go too quick, I do notice it will fill over. So if it was me, I would take the screen out unless you're planning on filling it really slow. But it's nice to see that they've implemented this, because the fact that less contaminants means less chance of something breaking down. The other thing is the construction. If you look at this construction, the box is almost the same as a Pelican case. It's actually a little bit thicker than the previous one as well. And if you've seen my videos from the last 3 years using the old one, I've put that thing through the absolute ringer and I've yet to break it. This thing is a little bit thicker, a little bit more durable, which I really like that they stepped up their game with the plastic compartment portion of it. The handle is quite a bit bigger, a lot more durable, and I like the fact that there's a pretty big gap. So if you do have a big mitt on, you can actually grab it. You don't have to worry about trying to tighten your hand. The other one, you had to kind of pick it out, and sometimes if snow and ice gets in there, it's a little bit tough. This one, super easy. Now, when we're talking about weight, this thing's about half full of diesel. It is not heavy whatsoever, which is really nice. The big thing, of course, if you're ever gonna be traveling with this on a snowmobile or even in your vehicle, don't travel with diesel in it because, of course, if it turns sideways or if you do flip it, you want to make sure that you don't get any diesel everywhere else. The other thing too is just make sure you strap it down. Just like anything else, your finers, whatnot, you want to protect this because this is going to be your main heat source on the ice. You just want to make sure it doesn't fail. Now on the front, you do have your removable display. Of course, your control module is going to do everything from turning on the unit, control your temperature, your fan speeds and whatnot, and give you a little idea on what's all the inner workings of when this thing is on. But realistically, the Toolbox 2 Bluetooth app is so good that I almost never use the control module. So we'll get into that a little bit. I'll show you how that all works. On the bottom corner, you have your 12-volt input. So that's going to be either for your battery or your newly included AC/DC adapter. And then of course you have your combustion air intake tube. So this tube does actually come up. It has a little bit of filter. There's supposed to be a little bit of a bracket here that you can attach everything to. I haven't installed that yet because I do want to do a modification to this to see if I can implement that or build it on the inside of the unit to make it a true all-in-one unit. Stay tuned. I'm going to do some trial and error. We're going to see if it works or not. And last but not least, on the front, you're going to have your cold air intake. Now, one of the biggest things I've really wanted the diesel heater companies, the builds, to really do is add a connection for a hose on the cold air intake. So of course, this is the intake for the heat output. There's no way to attach a hose. So I'm definitely going to be printing one so that I can attach a hose to it, because especially if you look at even the ice tents, like the Eskimo's new XDP versions, they actually have sleeves for diesel heaters. So they have one specifically designed for cold air intake and one for heat output. So it would be really cool for them to eventually put a hose connector on the cold air intake. Now that's really important because of the fact that when you get to a place like here in northern Manitoba, it gets to like -20, -30 on a regular basis in winter, and it makes this thing work so hard when you're drawing that cold air to come through the heater and then heat it into your tent. So by adding a cold air intake hose, now you can go in your tent, draw your warm air. This thing doesn't have to work nearly as hard to heat it. It goes back into your tent. Now, not only is it going to be more efficient, it's also going to heat up a little bit quicker, and you're also going to get some really good air circulation in your tent. So yeah, in the future, that's probably one thing I'd really like to see done. And on the back side, you have your heat output hose. So heat output hose, connect that in. That'd be very easy to do on the cold intake side if they had it. So like I said, that's something I'd like to see them do. This basically just goes directly into your tent. And then you also have your spot for your exhaust. So this does come with a flexible exhaust hose with a little bit of a muffler. And this is also something that I think is really overlooked in a lot of diesel heater builds, is the fact that they actually did the exhaust on the heat output side. Now, a lot of you guys are probably going to be wondering, why does that make a difference? I have actually seen exhausts on the cold intake side. Now, that can make a big difference because if your exhaust is on the outside here, let's say I'll just turn this around here. So if your exhaust was coming out here, if for some reason there's a leak, it'll actually draw that exhaust into your intake and then into your tent. That's a big no-no. And with that being said, one of the biggest things with any kind of diesel heater, with any kind of heat source, propane, doesn't matter what it is, make sure you guys have carbon monoxide detectors. I'm gonna say that a couple times throughout the video because that is probably one of the biggest faults about any kind of fuel operating heating systems is the carbon monoxide production. We lose way too many people a year on that. We just want to make sure everyone's safe on the ice. We want to see you again and again. We want to see those fish pics. We do not want to see the obituaries. So I take that very seriously, especially tent overnight safety. Make sure you have a good working carbon monoxide detector and make sure it's working. Test it on a regular basis. Then of course on the front and back, they have these little vents. Now that's going to help with a whole bunch of fresh air intake as well. It also helps to kind of keep the unit cool and to prevent it from overheating. But yeah, that's the outside aesthetics to it. I like the fact that the plastic's rugged. I like the screen. I like the fact that they put the exhaust on the output side. Like I said, I think the only negative thing I'd say is that they don't have a connection for a hose for the intake. That's about it. Now let's get to the fun stuff. Let's open this up and show you some of the changes that they've done for this year. Now, one of the biggest things you're gonna see once we open this up, it's pretty apparent to see, but it's gonna be this right here. Of course, most diesel heaters come with either a 4 or 5 liter diesel tank. This thing comes with a 6 liter. That is perfect. I think 6 liters is exactly what you need, especially when you're doing overnights. Back in the day with the old Hcalory diesel heater, it had a 5 liter tank. I would probably go to bed around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and I'd have to make sure I get up around 6 o'clock in the morning just to make sure. I usually had about an hour left of fuel before it would run out, but having this 6 liter tank just means that now I don't have to worry about those overnights. I can fill it right before I go to bed. Don't have to worry about it until I get up. So that is really good. That is a huge change. And that's why this box is a little bit bigger than the other toolbox and the toolbox one. So now let's get into the most important part of the diesel heater, and that is the actual heater unit itself. And this is where majority of the changes where I think are super positive. I think that's what's really gonna set this diesel heater apart, not only from its competitors, but also from previous versions of itself. And that is because they have a newly designed aluminum body. That newly designed aluminum body is stronger, which also means that it enables something called fast heating. The fast heating is a 3-minute fast heating system, which means that when you get this thing all set up and started, it only takes 3 minutes to get from ambient air temperature to full heating capabilities. And that is awesome because when you're setting up your tent, you set up your tent, you set up your diesel heater, you put your pipes in, you turn it on. By the time you get your chair set up, this thing's gonna be pumping out full heat, which I think is amazing. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now, not only did they redesign the aluminum body, they've also reconfigured and redesigned the combustion chamber. That means that they're now offering 36% more fuel efficiency. So with the 6 liter tank, 36% more fuel efficiency, this thing's gonna run for a much longer time period. Now with that new fuel efficiency, they also state that this thing has a 50-hour continuous runtime. I do wanna put that to a test because of the fact that 50 hours is a long time and there's too many variations. Is it pulling in cold air? What kind of cold air? Is it minus 20, 40? Is it only 10 degrees? What's your fan speeds at? I think there's too many variations to actually kind of state something like that. So stay tuned to my videos coming up because of course, I'm gonna be putting this thing to a test. I'll give you run times, how much I'm using, how much fuel I'm using on regular overnights, how much fuel and battery I'm using on a full weekend. We'll kind of go from there. But the fact that they have a newly designed housing, they have a newly designed combustion chamber, they have a bigger tank, new fuel efficiency, those are all really big positives in my mind. Now, one of the last biggest changes that they've done to this unit, which I think is a very important one, is they've also installed a quiet oil pump. Let's get this thing all set up and let's try it out because they said they've had quiet oil pumps before. And I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest negatives I've heard from other people using diesel heaters is that they don't like the ticking to it. So if this thing doesn't have the tick, it has a bigger fuel tank, it can run longer. This might just be the ultimate diesel heater. So let's get this all hooked up. Let's try it out. So I'm gonna move this over, but I'm gonna leave this open so we can kind of hear how loud this all is. Of course, we'll attach the exhaust to it. This just gets attached like that. We'll put the cold air intake on and attach power source. So the power source I'm gonna be using is a 12 volt, 46 amp Dakota lithium. Realistically, for run times on a single day, you could easily get away with a 60 amp battery. I would recommend for an overnight, I would do probably at least 100 amp just to make sure. I mean, I have done overnights on a 60 amp before, and I mean, I haven't done a ton of testing, especially on overnights in the middle of winter with this yet because it's still pretty new, but stay tuned. I'll give you a whole bunch of that information in a little bit. If you're doing a 2-day, 100% I would do 100 amp. I think 100 amp is perfect, not just for a single day, but a multi-day. And one of the biggest things to extend your kind of heating capabilities is always just get a solar system. Get a little solar generator. That makes a really big difference on your runtime as well, because once this thing is up and running, it doesn't really use a lot of electricity. So I'll hook this thing up. Now this little battery pack I made is something I take on my single days. It's nice and small, nice and compact. Of course, I just have a positive and negative connector up on top. Pretty easy. So I will use my phone to show you the display settings and how we get this all started up. It is gonna be a little tough because of the fact that the sun is there. So I'll stand here. So of course, for the first operation, you do want to prime the pump and whatnot. Go through the manual, they'll explain it all. If not, look at some other YouTube videos, they'll show it to you all. Realistically, a lot of that stuff's kind of boring. We just want to get this thing up and running, see how it works. And I'll take my phone here. I'll put a little video on the side here with my my phone video. So you can see what it's all operating. Right now it's at an H4, which basically just means that it's about halfway on its heating capabilities. So what's gonna happen is the glow plug is gonna glow right now, and then once it gets to full temperature, of course, you'll hear the pump kick in. Once the pump kicks in, then you'll hear the ignition, and then you got heat. There we go. So now you can hear the pump going. Now, usually startup is a little bit louder. The pump is a little bit louder because everything's not really oiled. It has a little bit of air into it. Once it gets going, it does get quite a bit quieter. And of course, the lid's open too, so. And of course, while I'm getting this all up and running, I'm gonna show you guys how the app works. So you go into your phone setting. I'll put that all over here. Scroll over to your Hcalory app. It's gonna connect, match, connected. Click on it, and boom. Just that easy. Now you can see all the stats that you have. You can see your voltage, your height elevation, your aluminum body temperature, your ambient temperature. You can change your fan speed and whatnot. That's the coolest thing about the app. You can control everything from your phone. That's exactly what we need. So with the app on and everything else, I know it's gonna be a little bit more noisy with the wind and whatnot, but let me know on the video if you can hear the ticking. Mics usually pick up a tick a little bit more than the human ear, but I personally can't hear it now, especially if we close this. I can't hear the ticking at all. So when they say the ultra quiet oil pump, I guess they mean it. That's a really big positive for these diesel heaters. So it's been running for about 30 seconds right now. I do have my trusty FLIR thermal camera. We'll take some pictures and do some comparisons for temperatures as well. So I do have a 3-minute timer started, and on the app it says it's 160 degrees Celsius for the aluminum body. So let's see and take a picture with the thermal. See how accurate this is. So it's about 158. So this one's showing a little bit different. So the temperature is a little bit off on my FLIR camera. If you look at the app there, it's at 166. My camera is showing 158, 164, 162. But of course, that's also gonna be an internal temperature, it's gonna be attached to the housing, which is gonna make a little bit of a difference on there as well. So the temperature for itself for the reading from the app to the FLIR camera is pretty close. Now, let's get the connector set up, get the hose on, and let's use this app. Let's crank this thing all the way up to 10 and see what she's got. Then we'll let this get all nice and warm, and then we'll use the FLIR camera to do a temperature set on the heat output as well. So it's just over 3 minutes and 12 seconds to be exact. And let's see what we're getting with the thermal camera. We're getting about 80, 81 degrees coming out. It is actually quite warm, and this thing is pumping out heat, which is awesome because it is a really cool fall day. So while this thing's working, let's take a little bit of a look on the app on how that all works. Of course, this is gonna show you a screen recording of my phone here. Right now we have it at maximum 10. I like the mode on units, so like 1 to 10. I just find that a little bit better than temperature. The good thing is if you have your thermostat or your control module on the inside of your tent, and you do have it set to a thermostat like 20 degrees, it will get to 20 degrees or 22 degrees, and then it'll slow the fan down to kind of cool it off and then boost up again just to keep it around that ambient temperature. Realistically, in the middle of the winter, it's very rare I don't run these things on max the whole time because we are running in big tents and we're also running in like minus 30 temperatures. So outside temperature, when it gets around that 30, 40, these things are on running max all the time anyway. So while this thing tries to heat up the world, let's go open up the app and I'll show you exactly how it is on my screen mirroring app over here. So of course, this is the Hcalory app here. I have it on maximum 10. And of course, if I go down, you can see me push the down button, go all the way down to 3, 4, 5. Depends on what you want to do during the day, especially when the sun comes out, it does get a little warmer. I like to drop the fan speed a bit. Basically, this mode here is going to show your fan speed. 10, of course, is max. You also have right below it that little red dot. That's going to be your high plateau. I like to get rid of that because technically our elevation is almost at sea level. We don't really need to have that on. You have your auto start and stop, so that can be on a timer. So if you want it on at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, you can adjust it as needed. And then you can go to mode change. So if you look at the bottom mode change, you can go temperature or gear. If I click temperature, you'll see it change to degrees. So right now, this actual control module is reading at 16 degrees. This would never change on our temperature because the fact that this heat will never be able to heat up the world enough to change the temperature setting on this. And that's why they like to have this removable. If you place this inside of your tent, basically what that's gonna do is once this gets to 16 degrees, it's gonna turn your fan temp down and keep it around that 16 degrees in general. Like I said, I still like to go back into my mode change, go into gear, and just have it cranked up. Like I say, our temperatures, it gets to -30. We pretty much run these things on max all day long. Of course, then you can also go into your settings app on the top corner, your Bluetooth password, your units, your Celsius or Fahrenheit, language, your altitude, timer set, pretty much absolutely everything. So like I say, definitely do some research, go check it out. And realistically, with the app control and your diesel heater, that's all you're gonna need to stay warm in our Manitoba climate. With all that mumbo jumbo that I just said, go back to your app, turn it on, fan speed up and down, whatever makes you comfortable. So let's get this thing cranked one more time. This thing's been running for a bit. Now before we turn this thing off, let's do one more temperature set with the FLIR camera. We're getting close, about 93, 94, kind of fluctuates between 93 and 96. I'll just take a picture. This one shows 93, and realistically, 93-degree air coming out when it's -20 feels like an absolute tropical breeze. So with that all being said, hopefully this helped you kind of understand a little bit of the new Hcalory Toolbox 2 diesel heater setup. I know there's gonna be a ton of questions, a ton of comments, so feel free to put a comment below. I'll definitely see what I can do to answer them. But realistically, I'm still kind of new to this one as well. I haven't had a full test for winter yet, so stay tuned to my winter fishing and camping videos. I'm gonna have this on every single adventure as I do, and I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of stats and updates on how it all works. Fuel consumption, battery consumption, and overall how I feel about the unit. So thanks again, Hcalory, for sending me the Toolbox 2. I'm super excited. I think a lot of the changes you guys implemented is gonna be a huge change to the diesel heater community. I think the only thing, if they could add another hose connection on the back, that would make this thing pretty much perfect. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. I can't wait for winter. We're gonna see you guys on the ice. There's still some fall fishing left, so make sure you guys wear your life jackets. Tell someone where you are when you're coming back. Make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector with any kind of heating source that you're gonna use. And until we catch you again, keep it real.